Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. As always at the end of the year I want to make a festive garment for the holidays, and this year I also find a really nice one to recreate, and I really like the color and the kind of fabric that it was made of. So I was really searching for that one, but the only thing that I could find in that color with a somewhat similar fabric is this silk. I'm already cutting it, so I only have a small piece to show you. But it's a very nice almost gold color, and this is a silk, and I must say I'm not particularly a fan of silk, but it was the only fabric that was somewhat the same and that had this color, and I really wanted that color because that was really nice. It had a gold belt to it, loose of the dress, but a gold belt. And I was really searching for this. So for this time I choose a silk, and I show you what my inspiration was. And if you haven't done already, please consider subscribing, hit that notification bell down below, and I would like you to join our little family. So I'll show you now what the inspiration was. Okay, this is now a really strange way of doing this inspiration part, because all the microphones that I have, even the microphone on my laptop, is not functioning. So I have put now my camera now on the tripod in front of my laptop. I'm filming my laptop so that I can just talk into camera, because I don't know how to do a voiceover now, because nothing is working, and I already had a company checking it, but they don't know what the problem is. So I'm gonna do it like this, and luckily this is the only part of voiceover in my videos normally, so it's just this little piece. But this is the dress that I saw on the YouTube channel What to Wear. She has really nice styling and outfit videos that I really like as a stylist, and this dress was really one that popped out for me. It's just a pretty simple shirt dress, but because of the beautiful fabric, it is a really nice piece for the holidays. And as you see, it is rather simple, but it has this hidden button row in the front. That means that the buttons are covered by the front bodice and skirt, and it's a really nice way of making a garment, giving a garment just a little bit more than a normal shirt dress. Of course it has a collar, some rather wide sleeves. You can make them wider or smaller, how you like it. I was planning to make cuffs on the sleeves, but because I want you to be able to make this dress for the holidays, I don't want to make it too complicated or too long a project to make. So I will just make the sleeves on the bottom just straight on with a hem, and then make them wide enough that you can roll them up as the model has here now. I think this dress doesn't have cuffs either, but I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna make it just straight on so that you can just roll them up. In the back part I will make a special feature. I don't know if this dress has it, but I like it, so I show you in the drawing what we're gonna do with that. And I really liked this fabric. It was really a struggle to find the right color. It's not really the same, but it's pretty much. I think this is a chintz, but I couldn't find the chintz, so I now bought that silk that I showed you. So I'll show you in the drawing how exactly we're gonna make it. And this is what the dress is gonna look like. And for the new viewers, I know I cannot draw at all, but this is just a reminder for me how I want to make the dress, and to show you somehow how it will be. So when you cannot draw, it's not a problem, then you still can design and you still can sew and make some nice garments, because really I cannot do better than this. This is the best that I can, and but I can tell by these pictures, by these drawings, how the dress will look like. So what it will be just a straight on dress. You can decide for yourself whether you want it a little bit more fitted or just a little bit more straight on, whatever you like, and you can make the adjustments very easily to your basic pattern. I will tell you when we make the basic pattern how you can do that. So I make mine a little bit going in at the waist. I draw now here a belt on. I found a somewhat similar belt as the inspiration picture had for my dress, so I'm very happy with that. So I can use that to cinch in the waist more, because of the fabric I don't want it really too fitted, because I don't like that too much. Then the sleeves, as I said, you can make them wider or tighter, what you like, but make sure that the bottoms here are not too tight, because we want to roll them up, and because you don't have a slit or something, because you don't have cuffs, you need enough width here at the bottom of your sleeve. And because we want to be able to roll it up, we will give the sleeves French seams. So here the sleeve seam will be a French seam, and that means that when you roll it up, you don't see raw edges or zigzags or something like that. That doesn't look nice. So we're going to really finish that very nicely with a French seam, and that's very easy to do. I will show you in this video, of course, but I also have a special that I will link up here and down in the description box, where you can see how to make French seams. Then we have here that covered button row. That's why I didn't draw buttons here on the dress, because you won't see them, only the most top part, the most top button you will see. Then we have a collar, of course, with a stand, and I have a tutorial about that too, so if you don't know how to do it or how to make the drawing, I will link it also up here in the right hand corner. So the front is pretty simple. For the back, I wanted to make here a shoulder part, a separate shoulder part, so that we can make a pleat here in the mid back. That gives a little bit more room here and a little bit more room in the back, and to make sure that it's not too loose fitted and too slouchy here at the waist, we will take the pleat down and stitch that with a square with a cross on, so that here the pleats that you have here, so the room that you have here, will be connected here together, so it is nicely cinched in at the waist, or not really cinched in, but attached at the waist, so that again you have room here below the waist, that the skirt is nicely falling a bit more loose around the butt. And I think that gives a really nice look where you want to give a little bit more structure, a little bit more something special, but not really too much or too difficult. So that will be for the back. So you see, it is pretty simple to do, pretty easy to do. I think the most difficult part will be here, the closed button row, but that is not really that difficult if you know how to do it. You just have to fold in, fold in, fold in, fold in, and then you get a hidden button row. So I'll show you how to make the pattern. So for the pattern, you will need your basic pattern for the front, for the top, sorry, for a top or a dress. And we make a left part and a right part for the front. And what you do, my pattern is a little bit curling up, so I will weigh it down a bit. What you do is you put your basic pattern on a new piece of paper, and you trace that around. And what I will do, I will just use my normal side seam, so with a little bit curved in at the waist for my body type. I will not use my darts, so that means that my dress will be this much wider, because this pattern is made to my waistline when I sew this together, when I sew the darts together. So my dress will be a little bit wider, although I will use just my normal side seam because we don't use the darts. If you want it to be more fitted, of course you can use the darts, or take this off from your side. I think this was 3 centimeters. Take that off and then make it more go in. What you also can do, if you don't want it too fitted or more loose, then just go straight down from your armhole and don't give it the curve into your waist if you have that with your body. So mark that side seam, mark your armhole, mark here your front neck hole, and then what you do is we're going to add, because we need overlap for the button row and we also need a facing for the button row. So I added to my mid front, put this aside a bit, 2 centimeters for the overlap and 2 centimeters for the facing. So this is my mid front line. I made a new line here, 2 centimeters from that, and then another line 2 centimeters from that, and here I cut it down. And when you put the facing under, as we shall do with the fabric, you have here a 2 centimeter overlap for your front. So that is your left front pattern, so very easy to do. And of course all my basic patterns I will link down below in the description box and in the up right corner, where you can make your basic pattern very easy and you can use them over and over again. So you just have to make it once and it's not difficult. It's just follow along with the video, with the drawings, and it's very simple to do. And then you have your basic pattern forever. Then for the white part of the front, again you take a new piece of paper, you trace again your armhole and your side seam. But here, because we have the overlap here because we're going right over left, and we must make here the hidden button row. What it looks like, I'll show you. I folded it in that you can see what it looks like. This line was too much. I was so enthusiastic, busy with making my lines, that I made one line too much. So you don't need this one. This is your mid front. So I put 2 centimeters overlap, then I took 2 centimeters facing, then I took 2 centimeters for the hidden button row, and then again 2 centimeters for the facing. So when I fold it open, I have now 1, 2, 3, 4 extra pieces of 2 centimeters. So you draw 1, 2, 3, well, this is the mid front, so 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, and at the fourth you cut it off, and then you have your whole hidden button row. So it's just folded in the facings and then folding in, well, let's call it the extra overlap. That is the whole trick with the hidden button row, that you have now here this where you can put your here will be the what's it called? Buttonholes. I don't know, yeah, buttonholes. And then this will just fall over and then your button row is hidden. So you just need to add some pieces extra of fabric to have that. And for the rest it's just the same as your left part. It's just a little bit more fabric. Then for the back, again you need your basic pattern. Again you need some extra new paper. And what you do is you trace first the upper part of your pattern, and that will be that shoulder part that we will have. So that's just the top part of your pattern, and I have to take a measuring tape, how much that is. I made that 14 centimeters high, so this is 14 centimeters, and then you cut that off. That is the top part of your pattern. Then for the bottom part of your pattern, again you trace your basic pattern for the back. You leave out the top part that you cut off. You trace that down, again the rest of your armhole and your side seam. And then you're gonna add here also 2 centimeters and 2 centimeters. So to each side 4 centimeters. And that is because we want here to make a pleat. This will be the fold, of course. So attached to this is the other side of your back pattern. And the pleat will be attached to your shoulder part, like this. Then you have here nicely a pleat that is double also on the back, on the other side. And then at the end of your pleat where the waist is, so mark where your waistline is, we're gonna make that cross stitching so that the pleat is here nicely attached to your back pattern, and then you have here an open folding pleat to the bottom of your skirt. So that is your back pattern. So just the same as your basic pattern, but just add 2 times 2 centimeters. So 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters for each side. And here is the fold of your fabric. So cut that on the fold. Also this, cut it on the fold. So those are the patterns for the dress. Then of course you need your collar. And this is the basic pattern for the collar that I will also link down below and in the up right corner. you have your stand and you this is your stand. You have your stand and you have your collar, and make sure that your stand is fitting in your neck hole. So measure out here your back neck hole and then your front neck hole, and together, this is your front neck hole, together they must match here the bottom of your stand. If you're not sure, just make it a little bit longer here at the mid back, that you have for sure enough fabric on your stand, otherwise you will have a problem. And if you need, but usually this is fitted because it is your same basic pattern, but sometimes you add more for an overlay or whatever, and then it will not be really matching. But also, of course, check if your collar is matching your stand when you change your stand. And then the only thing you need is your basic pattern for a sleeve, and I will use it just like this. If you have a more flatter head of your sleeve, of your basic pattern, that's not a problem, you can do that. You can make it more high as I have, then you have more of a curve over your shoulder. When it's more flat, it is more of a casual sleeve. It's just whatever you prefer, it doesn't really matter, especially in this case it doesn't really. The only thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the bottom of my sleeve a little bit smaller, because mine is now 30 centimeters and I make it 25, because otherwise it's really too loose around my waist and I don't like it. But make sure you make it wide enough that you can roll it up when you want to. And then when you cut your sleeve, here we're gonna make French seams. And that means normally I cut my seam allowance 1 centimeter. Now on the place where I want to make French seams, I make 2 times 1 centimeter. So 2 centimeters of seam allowance, because we have to stitch the seam twice. We stitch it first one sides together, cut off the excess, and then sew it right sides together. So you need a little bit more of seam allowance. So double up the seam allowance that you normally have. Only here on your sleeve seams. The rest is no problem, that's not different than other. And then we have all the pattern pieces, so we're gonna cut it out. So I cut out all my pieces, the shoulder part for the back on the fold here, the back pattern also on the fold and with the markings for the pleat and where the waist is, then my right front pattern and my left front pattern, then 2 times the sleeve, and then 2 times the collar on the fold, of course, so that's the whole piece, and 2 times the stand for the collar. And what I already did, I ironed some interfacing on the pieces that I need, and make sure that the interfacing you use is suitable for your fabric, because I always make a try piece first to see if when I iron it on, it has the best grip, and it has its flow, it stays in the flow. And the first interfacing that I tried on this silk wasn't really good. It was too stiff, and because this is a rather long flowy dress in the front at least, I don't want the button row to be too stiff. So I took another interfacing that I ironed on here, and I ironed it on the facing part of my left pattern. I ironed it on my right pattern, and I ironed it on from here where the overlap is to the end. So the facing of the overlap, the under part, and the facing for the under part. So not from the mid front, but from where your overlap is starting. And then when I ironed it on, I already also ironed in the pleats. So I ironed it on already in the pleats that you need for the covered button row. So your facing for the overlap is going under, that's this one. Then the next part is going out, that is the part where the buttonholes comes in. And then the other part is the facing, so you go in, out, in, if that makes sense. It looks then like this. You have this doubled up thing with here your fold. And then you can iron that down after you put your interfacing on. And as I said, I just clipped it to keep it in place. and then later on we're going to make the buttonholes first. So these are all the pieces. Also interfacing you need on one part of your collar and on one part of your stand. So now we're going to start sewing, and what we're first going to do is we're folding in the pleats here in the mid back, and it means that you go from the mid to the side, so you put the pins or the markings on top of each other and then pin that pleat down, and this side again go from the mid to the side and then pin it down. And I always like to iron the pleats in before I sew them, because then you get a really nice crisp pleat. So do that, and when you've nicely ironed that in, then you put your shoulder part on top of it, right sides together of course, and you sew the top part of your shoulder part and your back pattern together. Stitch your shoulder part to your back part. What you can do now is top stitch this seam. I'm certainly going to do that. You can choose if you like to or not. And when you've done that, then you put your back pattern right sides together on top of your front patterns, and then we're going to sew our shoulder seams. So sew that down, and also sew the side seams. So line them up nicely and sew the whole side seams of your dress, and these also you can top stitch if you like to. The back of the dress are connected, so we put that aside for now, and now we're going to work on the sleeves. And as I said, the sleeve seams will be French seams, so that when you roll them up you won't see the war edges or a zigzag or whatever on the bottom. So what you do is you take one sleeve and you put them one sides together, and then you sew your sleeve seam. So just normally, as you normally would do, only now we have the one sides together. When you have sewn that down, you will cut off the seam allowance as much as you can. I cannot talk anymore. And then you put it one side out, so the right sides will be facing, and then you sew another seam here, and it means that you are encapsulating your first seam allowance, so it will be covered by your next seam, and then you have really nicely finished seams. It's not difficult because it's just making the seam 2 times, but it's just a nice way to finish it up. So we're going to do that for both our sleeves. So make sure the first time you put the wrong sides together, so different than what you normally would do. now you have nicely finished your sleeve seams, so when you roll them up there are no raw edges, zigzags or strange seams. It's nice and neat. Make sure you have ironed flat all your seams of your sleeve, but also of the dress, because now we're gonna take in pin in our sleeves. So mark where the middle is of your sleeve, so the shoulder middle, and line that up with your shoulder seam. So take your sleeve in and then flip this open that you can put them together. Then you line the mid of your sleeve up with your shoulder seam and pin that down. It's very slippery, this silk. And then you pin the sleeve seam together with the side seam of your dress. So reach in until you get your sleeve seam and line that up. And then distribute the rest of your sleeve into your armhole and pin that down all around. So I'll do it like this. You can see the sleeve is in, and you just pin all around and sew that down and finish that. We're going to do before we put on our collar is we're gonna finish here the mid fronts, and that means make sure that you have finished the edge of your facing, and then we're gonna top stitch that down. So we're gonna attach the facing to the rest. So just make a stitching here along the side of your facing so that this is nicely attached, and you do the same on the other side. So make sure you have folded in all these parts well, that you have here this flap, and then you're gonna top stitch all all these layers together. So you're gonna again here top stitch along the edge of your bottom facing. So you will see the stitching here, that is okay. And we do that before we make our buttons, because then you are sure that all your layers are attached nicely and no one is gonna shift. Because when you have a fabric like me, this silk is very sleek, and it's very easy when you make buttonholes that they will shift. So I want to make sure that all my layers are together now and connected. So we're going to do that first, top stitch it down, and then you can make your buttonholes here in the bottom layer of your front, of course, because this is the part that is covering the button and the buttonholes. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to put our collar on. I'm gonna make my buttonholes now, and I'm not gonna film that because the way you make buttonholes is different for every sewing machine, so it's no use that I show how my machine is working. But make sure that you only put your buttonholes in the bottom part of your front piece of the white pattern. So this part is the one that is concealing the buttonholes. Now we're going to start on the collar, and we're going to start with the collar pieces itself. Put them right sides together on top of each other, and you're going to sew them together on the straight edge of the collar, so not on the curved one, because the curved one is where you attach it to your stand. So sew that on 3 parts, cut off the corners and flip it right side out. If you want, you can top stitch it. I think I won't, but you can certainly do that. Attach our collar to our stand. So what you do is you put your collar on top of one of the stands and then put the other one on top of it, so you're sandwiching the collar, and line them up nicely that your collar is nicely in the middle of your stand, and then pin this whole part down, and of course then sew that. Sure you have pressed down your collar very nicely. Mark the middle of your back and mark the middle of your collar, and then you're gonna pin one part of the stand to the whole neck hole, from the mid on one side to the mid on the other side, and then you're gonna sew that down. And I always like to hand sew the facing part to the inside by just folding it in and then sewing it to the seam. Then you have a nicely finished collar, and then your collar is attached, and you only have to do make a buttonhole on one side of your collar so that you can close it up. So I pinned it on. I'm gonna sew that down, and you see when I flip it up, it is nicely attached from both mid fronts to the other side. And again, you can top stitch this if you want to. I won't do it, I just press it down very nicely, and then your collar is nicely done. Is nicely finished. I put a buttonhole in the right top corner, and now we're gonna make the cross for the cinching at the waistline. So make sure you have marked very well where your waist is. I usually like to do it a little bit up, but now because we want to bunch it up a little bit, I'm doing just straight at my waist. If you have fabric that you can put a fabric marker on, then I would advise you to just draw it out. It is more easy to sew it when you've drawn it out. Of course, you have to pin it too to keep the pleats in place, but when you have your drawing on it, it's more easy to sew it, especially when you have a slippery fabric as this. So this will be a little bit of a challenge. But what I'm going to do, I pinned my pleat down, and I'm going to make a square and then a cross in the middle. Then you have a nicely finished and nicely embellished part there. And then the only thing you have to do is hem your sleeves. I will just make a very small walled hem the bottom of your dress, and sew on your buttons. And I have a lot of buttons. I made a lot of buttonholes. I have 13 buttons, so quite some. And I think for the first time in my life, I'm gonna use my sewing machine to sew on the buttons. I have never done that before, because I thought, well, it's very easy to do by hand and you've done it in no time. But now with 13 buttons and I'm really tired, I think I'm gonna try to use that feature on my sewing machine. So I'm curious how that will be. So do that, and then your dress is done, and you will see the final result. it was quite a struggle to finish this dress because I had two animals that were sick, and as you saw, our dog passed away. It was halfway the project, so I had to put my energy and my attention everywhere, and you know that I don't have much of that, so I really had problems focusing, and maybe I wasn't that clear during the video, so I hope you forgive me. But I think it turned out to be a really nice dress. As I said, I'm not really a fan of silk. I don't really like how it feels on the skin, but it certainly looks very nice. I see now in the viewfinder that the color is not picking up very well. It's a really nice warm gold. It looks now more grey one, but it's really a gold color. And it has that really soft shine that silk had, and I think that is very nice. What I regret a bit, because I wasn't really focusing on what I was doing, I will zoom you in. You see here, on the other side, you see my serger stitching, and I really don't like that. You know that I don't like it where my garments aren't nicely finished, aren't really perfect, and I don't like that you see this. Normally I would fold it under and top stitch it then, but I made the folds and I just serged it and I sewed it down, and when I put it on I thought, oh, I don't like it. So I'm really gonna change that. So I would advise you, when you zigzag this or when you serge it, fold it under and then top stitch. I did it on the other side, but on this side I was just not focusing, and because this hangs open I will not button it up all the way. You can see that, and I don't think that is nice. And also here, the finishing of the collar, of the stand of the collar, is not to my taste, so I'm certainly going to change that, but I didn't have time anymore. I was really hurrying to finish it up, and but as I always say, make sure that you like what you make and that you're satisfied, otherwise you won't wear it. And I know when I leave it like this I won't wear it, but for the rest I think it's a really nice dress. I found almost the same belt that I think matches the dress very nicely. And the nice thing of these shirt dresses is you can dress them up like this for an occasion, but you also dress them down. Just put a normal leather belt on, maybe a t-shirt underneath or something, just some normal boots, and you just have a normal everyday dress that is very nice. The only thing is this is a very delicate fabric, so you have to be careful with animals or with water, of course, stains and something like that. That is not really nice in this kind of fabric. But for the rest, it is a very plain and simple design. I don't know if you can see it, but the cross here in the back, I really like it. You hardly see it, especially when I have my hair hanging loose, but I like details, especially on the back like this. And I like it when someone finds out, hey, that's nice on your back. So I think it turned out a really nice dress. I'm gonna make some changes so that I'm really satisfied with it. And I hope you liked the tutorial. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section, and I will get back to you if you have any problems doing this tutorial. And if you haven't done yet, please consider subscribing. I upload every other Sunday, and the next one will be again a knitted one, because I have quite some knitted fabrics to sew with, and I really like them. It's really nice and very easy to do. So the next one will be again a knitted one, as I already have quite some. I also have a playlist of my knitted garments, so I will leave that down below also. So I hope you like this one, and thank you so much for watching, and I see you again back in 2 weeks. Bye!